on One American News, and I have had a great week. Tonight's show, GOP frontrunners get to join me. Senator Ted Cruz, he gets us on point with campaign news and his take on the war on faith. And then Governor Jeb Bush, he's going to talk about, of course, politics and his new e-book and a unique campaign commitment to help the vulnerable in America. And then later, the Donald. Trump is leading in the polls, and he's here to talk to you, too. Also, hey, you haven't forgotten about Lois Lerner, have you? Well, Senator Orrin Hatch hasn't, and he's here with IRS scandal updates. And then, hey, ESPN, stick to sports. The PC police, they're over there doing their thing, and they're messing up a lot of sports coverage. Intolerant much, ESPN? They canned a good guy for a tweet about Muslims. I'll explain that. So let's go at bat. It's great to see someone attending to important issues that others may want to kind of pretend aren't even there, may want to overlook in this entertaining, poll-tested, issue-oriented world of presidential politics.
Lucy has autism. She doesn't speak. She doesn't walk. But not being able to speak is not the same as not having anything to say. People with disabilities, they want to have freedom, just like anybody else.
The barriers right now on people rising up is the great challenge of our time. So many people could do so much better if we fixed a few things. My core beliefs start with the premise that the most vulnerable in our society should be in the front of the line, not the back. And as governor, I had a chance to act on that core belief.
He really cares about us. He really cares about people with developmental disabilities and with all disabilities. There are people today that are getting services because of what Jeb did. He doesn't do it for himself. He does it because he's a true servant. He is the best voice that we can have.
A public servant. Florida's former governor has really made a difference in the lives of those who face more challenges than most. And he is sincere in this. He's taking up a cause not as perhaps exciting, electrifying as a media craving ratings show wants, but it shows the man's heart, though, and his priorities and his intentions for our great nation. We're honored that joining us, GOP presidential candidate who has given so much personally and with successful efforts in policy to Americans who struggle, doing right by a community that deserves a voice. Governor Jeb Bush, truly, it's an honor, sir.
Thank you, Sarah, and I appreciate your steadfast support for those with different abilities. My commitment to this started in 1998 as a candidate where I ran into people over and over again, and they said, my biggest fear is whether or not I'm going to outlive my child. If you think about it from that perspective, you just go, oh, my goodness. I mean, that's a place where the government needs to play a role to take care of families that are struggling to be able to love their children with their heart and soul. They become adults, and we need to continue that. And in the case of Florida, while the federal judge was about ready to take over that program, in the first week of my office time, I went to the courthouse and said, please, let us redesign the program. Let us fund it. Let us make sure that we can eliminate the waiting list. And we did all that, and I was really proud of it.
It's amazing, all that background work that has to be done, that you accomplished in order to fulfill that mission of helping the community that, as I say, needs a voice and deserves respect. So you're on top of security and economic issues, of course, but you're also talking about these issues that we just prefaced and issues like education, issues that result in things that we can do to help improve lives, and truly government's proper role in doing that. Has it been tough to engage other candidates, though, and the media in issues that aren't easily captured in the 10-second sound bites?
Yeah, I think you got to show who you are, and I'm informed by my faith on these issues, and I have a reformer's heart, too. I have a zeal for reform. There are a lot of things that government does that are broken. I mean, our education system is a good example of that. But if you have programs for the developmentally disabled that aren't working, I think we have a duty to fix them. It's not necessarily spending more money, but empowering people to be able to live lives of dignity and respect. That should be a very powerful conservative value, and I share that belief. And so whether it's popular popular or not in the here and now, I really don't care, to be honest with you. I think part of it is just to share the joy of service and the belief that you can help people and you can do it in a more effective way.
Yes. So as president, how would one affect issues that speak to the foundation of culture? Because as I say, as I'm suggesting, a lot of people, they don't want to go there. You know, it's too sensitive or too controversial for some reason. How does a very busy president prioritize for this, though, besides maybe a fewer rounds of golf?
Well, I think basically you have to start with the premise that life is a gift from God, and you need to express it openly in a way that people can understand, and that life in every form is precious and needs to be protected from the beginning to the end. And I just believe that in my heart, and I think Americans believe that as well, and they can be inspired by that. It's not a question of another 5-point plan, another government program. It's simply a question of realizing that we've lost some of our belief that life is precious. And the minute we do that, whether it's the Planned Parenthood issues that are just grotesque or end-of-life issues, everything else becomes hurt as well. I think it's the full package that we need to embrace. And people in public life, I think, every right. In fact, I think they have a duty to express that core value.
Well, out of everyone, I think it is you who is able to convey that very sincere message that your heart is in it. It's not for political reasons. And I hope that we get to hear and read more about that in this newfangled ebook that you have coming out. I find this very interesting, called Reply All, and I understand that you're going to release a few emails, and what to me that says is you will quite transparently codify your time in public service. That's in contrast to Hillary's hidden email scandal. Tell us about the book.
Well, when I started my governorship, I gave out my email address, jeb@jeb.org. People can, in fact, I guess right now people will email me, and the idea was to serve. If people had a problem, I became their advocate to cut through the bureaucracy. And I tried to change the culture in Washington, in Tallahassee and in Florida by being transparent. And so we probably had, 500,000 emails. And from that came a book. It's an ebook about my service through the emails. And it's part fun. It's part emotional. It's part giving people a sense that not everybody agreed with me, believe it or not, Sarah. And, I let them let me have it, and I used good humor. I showed respect, and I think the cumulative effect of the 8 chapters, effectively as a chapter for every year, gives a sense of the all-in nature of my service as governor. And it does compare dramatically different than the Hillary world, where she had a private email, secret. She didn't tell anybody about it. She didn't provide all the information, and you can get my emails through public records requests, and I'm writing a book about it. To get her emails, you need a subpoena.
Yeah, and that really reflects two different worldviews and the definition of transparency, the definition of public service. So that is greatly appreciated. You must have a very understanding wife for you to have time to answer emails, because I know even today you're answering emails.
Yeah, my wife is a saint, and we've been married 41 years, and it probably added 30 hours to my work week when I was governor. And she got frustrated from time to time, but she knew it was important. She saw the benefits of it. To this day, I was on talk radio in Birmingham, Alabama this week, and a guy said, "You know what? You don't know this, you won't remember this, but I tried to transfer my credits from a community college to the University of Florida. I got half of them transferred, not all of them. I wouldn't have been able to stay in school unless all of them were transferred. You emailed me, and the Department of Education responded in 3 days, and all of my credits were granted, and it changed my life." That is more important to me, the chance to serve and to fix things, than about anything else. And so she saw the benefits of that, and she was very kind and generous to let me do it.
Well, you are certainly a team, a strong team, and that's what is needed. And certainly you're a good example for others across our great nation. So, Governor Bush, I thank you so much for taking precious time out of your day to share with us, and can't wait for that book. I hope that you do talk specifically about other examples, maybe specific emails that have really changed your life and led to change policy that helps other people.
Absolutely. It'll come out on October 30th. It's on Amazon.
Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. With those words, this nation sprung into existence. There is a reason why in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the very first protection in the very first amendment of the Bill of Rights is the freedom of religion. If we cannot worship God, if we cannot live according to our faith and our dictates, all other liberties fade away. Never have the threats been greater to religious liberty than they are right now and here today.
And he's got the passion. I know our constitutional rights are under attack. Senator Cruz reminds us with no religious freedom, got no freedom at all. Of the church, it was predicted. Some people say, oh yes, all prophesied. Well, your amazing dad, he talks a lot about this, and he teaches people about what it's all about and what we can do about it. Our rights being under attack in this day and age. Say you're the president. How is it that you can protect it?
Well, I have already committed that if I'm elected president, on the very first day in office, I will direct the Department of Justice and the IRS and every single federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends that day. Now, what does that mean as a practical matter? That means for every serviceman and woman, every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine, that he or she can worship God Almighty with all of his heart, mind, and soul, and his commanding officer has nothing to say about it. That also means groups like the Little Sisters of the Poor, who I know you're very familiar with, a Catholic charity that the Obama administration is litigating against to try to force those Catholic nuns to pay millions of dollars in Obamacare fines to try to make them pay for abortion-inducing drugs. If I'm elected president, the case against the Little Sisters of the Poor will be dismissed, and the IRS will not be targeting anyone for their political views, anyone for their faith. But we will defend the First Amendment rights of every American.
It's appreciated that you're specific about it, and you have these practical solutions, and you, even with your legal background, how valuable this is, knowing what it is that is within your power as a president, being able to do. And I know that part of your effort to fight for what's right specifically is you leading a defund Planned Parenthood fight. Where are we on that?
Well, I'll tell you, this week I was very proud to host a conference call where we invited over 100,000 pastors all across this country to come together and to stand up and to speak out and to pray for our nation, to preach from the pulpit that we need to stand against this barbarism, this murder and commerce in the sale of human life, and to call on Congress to lead. You know, I think two things need to happen. Number one, you know, these Planned Parenthood videos, for anyone who watches them, they are horrific. They're heartrending. And in them, senior Planned Parenthood officials are effectively admitting to multiple felonies. I've also announced on my first day in office as president, I intend to direct the U.S. Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood and to prosecute any and all criminal violations. But this coming fall, next month, we're going to have a battle in Congress, a battle over funding Planned Parenthood. In my view, not one penny of taxpayer money, not one penny of your taxes or my taxes should go to Planned Parenthood, should go to fund what appears to be an ongoing nationwide criminal enterprise. Now, unfortunately, Republican leadership is scared of this fight. They want to have a show vote, a meaningless show vote where everyone votes, it doesn't matter, and they move on. And it's going to be a real battle in September. We have Republican majorities in both houses. In my view, we should act like it, and we should stand together and say, we are going to fund the entire federal government, but we're not going to fund the ongoing murder and the sale of the body parts of unborn children. It's my hope that that's what the Republican majority actually does.
Well, you got to push them to do that, and we appreciate your efforts there. And speaking of the other side of the aisle and the battles that are going to ensue here, Hillary Clinton just suggested a comparison of independent, patriotic Americans who just happen to disagree with her socialist stance to terrorists. I want to ask you, do you know any conservative patriots hell-bent on jihad?
Well, of course not. And that's the problem with the Obama-Clinton foreign policy. They can't tell good guys from bad guys. And so as a result, if you look abroad, this administration, leading from behind, they've alienated and abandoned all of our allies. We've never seen an administration more hostile to the nation of Israel than the Obama administration. I think back, Governor Palin, to when you were doing the vice presidential debates in 2008. If you had turned to Joe Biden and if you had said, if the elected prime minister of Israel comes to America to address a joint session of Congress and Barack Obama is elected, I predict that President Obama, Vice President Biden, and every member of the cabinet will boycott the elected prime minister of Israel. If you'd have said that, you would have been ridiculed as that being an absurd, ridiculous conspiracy theory beyond anything anyone could imagine. And yet just a few months ago, we saw President Obama and Joe Biden and every member of the cabinet boycott Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was fundamentally wrong. And yet at the same time, they're attacking and undermining our friends. They're propping up our enemies. So we look at this deal with Iran. The single greatest national security threat facing America is the threat of a nuclear Iran. If this deal goes through, the Obama administration, without exaggeration, will become the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. Over $100 billion will go to Iran. Billions of those dollars will go to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, and they will use that to murder Americans, Israelis, Europeans. If Secretary Clinton wants to know what real jihadists are, what real terrorists are, she doesn't need to look any further than ISIS and Iran and all of the radical Islamic terrorists that her administration keeps propping up and funding. It doesn't make any sense, and it's profoundly dangerous to our country.
Well, and good on you for highlighting Obama's capitulation to Iran with that asinine, unenforceable nukes agreement. You and Donald Trump together, I hear you're going to be in D.C. on September 9th to rally against this horrible plan, this deal. I assume that you guys have an open invite for all the candidates who really need to take a stand on this, Senator.
Absolutely. We're having a rally on the U.S. Capitol grounds the afternoon of September 9th. We're having I invited Donald Trump to come join me, and he very kindly accepted. We're going to have thousands of Americans, and it's across the spectrum. We're going to have Tea Party groups. We're going to have pro-Israel groups. We're going to have national security groups. Everyone who is concerned about protecting the safety and security of the United States of America. We're going to see thousands there at the rally, urging every member of Congress to do the right thing, and in particular to Democrats. Every Democratic member of Congress faces a choice. Does he or she value the national security of this country, standing with our friend and ally, the nation of Israel, and the lives of millions of Americans, more than they value partisan loyalty standing with the Obama White House? It is my hope they answer that question right. This rally is going to do everything we can to encourage them to do exactly that.
You are one who would be walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So keep that up, and the example that you are providing other candidates, both sides of the aisle, and helping to bring Americans along on this whole journey towards peace. The only way, Reagan, the only way that we will have a peaceful existence is to exercise that strength, that God-given strength, and the gifts that he has provided us. Senator, thank you so much for taking valuable time out of your day. I know you got a million people out there waiting to hear from you, so I'll let you go, but just keep up the good work, keep the faith, and stay strong, sir.
Well, thank you, Governor Palin. It's good to see you. You know, I will note thank you for your courageous voice in support of freedom. As you know, as I've said many times, I wouldn't be in the U.S. Senate today. I wouldn't be running for president today if it were not for you coming to Texas and supporting me. I am so grateful for your friendship and your fearless stance. And I'm proud to call you a friend. I will tell you, I miss that moose chili that you cooked up for me in Alaska. I look forward to hopefully getting some more sometime soon. And let me say to your viewers, if you want information either on religious liberty or on the rally, you can find it.
Conducted her official sensitive IRS business on a very unofficial email account. What is it with these ladies? Like they wouldn't get caught? Learners IRS that she ran, they engaged in a practice of automatically deleting all communications using a couple of different tools. Why so many secrets? Joining me now, we're going to find out. It's the U.S. Senator who's leading the charge to get truth out of this regime. And we thank him for his leadership and his tenacity on this. I'm going to ask him what's going on with the IRS. So Senator Orrin Hatch, thank you so much. Honored that you're here, sir.
Well, I'm honored to be with you. This is great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, the recent IRS data breach where personal information and thousands of taxpayers, the information about them was released, like social security numbers and bank account information. Who did it? What became of that frightening breach? And does that have anything to do with what's going on with Lois Lerner and her email scandal?
You know, one of our most important functions in the Senate Finance Committee is oversight, particularly over the tax and revenue issues. So we've held some rigorous oversight hearings, and they range from protecting taxpayers from filing scams to the theft of taxpayer information, which is really serious stuff. And what we found is that the IRS, this IRS scandal, everything from the IRS scandal to the IRS data breach and everything in between, is that this government has grown too large and too unaccountable to the American people. And it shows gross mismanagement at the highest levels of the IRS. It confirms an unacceptable truth that the IRS is prone to abuse. And we found serious evidence that the administration's political agenda guided the IRS's actions with respect to their treatment of conservative groups. Personal politics of IRS employees, such as Lois Lerner, also impacted how the IRS conducted its business. So, in my view, American taxpayers should expect more from the IRS, and we deserve an IRS that lives up to its mission statement of administering the laws fairly and impartially, regardless of political affiliation. And personally, I believe the IRS should be an independent agency. It should not be permitted to unionize. But it's unionized. Do you know how hard it is to fire an IRS employee? It's almost impossible. No matter how incompetent, no matter how wrong they are, it's just almost impossible because of the collective bargaining agreements with the IRS. And we all know the unions are not very favorable to the Republicans. And in this particular case, there were a number of IRS people who deliberately targeted Tea Party and other conservative organizations by treating them differently than other types of organizations.
Well, I appreciate the way that you are terming this. It's unacceptable truth, meaning the people of America are counting on Congress to do something about that unacceptable truth. And we appreciate you leading the charge here as chair of the Finance Committee. What is it that you can do, though, to clean it up? Or, like many of us would love to see, just shut it down. The IRS sounds irreparably broken. What can we do to help?
Well, it is broken, and we have very little we can really do other than explain these things to the public at large, and that's having an effect. But until we get a president who's willing to clean up and clean some of these bureaucracies out and do what's right, it's very difficult to it's very difficult to get a lot done. You know, the conservative organizations, for instance, here, were singled out based on the existence of key words in their names or any other indication that they held conservative ideals, like reducing the role of government or paying down the public debt. They were identified based on a political philosophy. And there were, I think, approximately 300 Tea Party conservative groups were harmed by the IRS. And the political views appear to have influenced how the IRS did business. And, Lois Lerner's a Democrat. She admits that. But the level of her dislike for Republicans, and especially conservatives, was really shocking. And the report that we did, we put a lot of time into that, and it was bipartisan. Now, we have majority and minority views where the minority views of the Democrats, they say, yes, this was terrible, but there was really nothing you can do about it, and that the Republicans are wrong in pointing out all these things. But the report does show a direct connection between Lerner's political views and how the IRS treated conservative taxpayers, and especially those who sought to participate in political discourse. And, I think she was able to exert this type of influence because her managers failed to stay informed about what she was doing. And she willfully, in my opinion, discriminated against conservative taxpayers, and I don't think many people doubt that for a minute.
Absolutely. And, it's a very frightening situation for America to find herself in, and that is not being able to trust the bureaucrats who are really doing a lot of damage. As you point out, the unionization, protecting those who really have no accountability because they are so protected. As a leader there in the Senate, are you finding, though, that your colleagues get it, that they're as passionate as you are in trying to do right for America when it comes to specifically what the IRS has been doing to us?
Well, the Republicans get it, and I have to say that Senator Wyden and the Democrats were appalled at the incompetence of the people down there at the IRS, but they didn't think, they concluded there wasn't any intention to really do wrong. I don't see how you can read the report without knowing there was an intention. The report shows a clear connection between the president's statements and IRS action. After the Supreme Court struck down parts of campaign finance reform in the Citizens United decision, the president beat on his bully pulpit to make sure everyone knew how upset he was about the decision. And our report shows that the IRS executives were listening, and it wasn't long before they started looking for ways to limit political speech by tax-exempt organizations, and in particular, conservative tax-exempt organizations, or organizations that should have been approved by them that were conservative. Now, our report also shows that the IRS was not acting alone. During the same period, the Department of Justice was considering bringing criminal prosecutions against organizations that it believed engaged in too much political speech. Now, think about that. In the freest nation on earth, where we should have a right to speak our mind in politics no matter what, they were considering criminal prosecutions against some organizations that they thought engaged in too much political speech. And it's clear that officials throughout the administration knew what the president wanted them to do. A, quote, smoking gun, unquote, email directly to the IRS wasn't necessary. They knew it. They figured it out. And the report shows that the IRS has established a pattern of misleading both houses of Congress about whether the IRS targeted conservative organizations. And this included statements by former commissioners and by Lerner herself. My suggestions are that we should make the IRS an independent agency. We should remove the union from the IRS. Why should we have a partisan union that almost 100% of its monies go to elect very liberal Democrats? To have that kind of influence over the most feared and, in many respects, important organization or bureaucracy in our country.
Absolutely.
And we ought to allow 501c4 groups. These are the nonprofit groups that are able to participate in the political, arena to sue for declaratory judgment. These are ideas that we came up with, but without being able to get a president who's willing to really clean up I don't know that very much is going to happen until hopefully in 2016 when we get a Republican president.
Well, absolutely. We've got your back on this, and I want your colleagues to understand that, too. You've got the experience, and you understand that the public does. We protect you, if you will, as a senator, doing your job to protect us. I certainly hope that with your stiff spine, that others around you, too, will stiffen their spine and help you out on this. Because, Senator Hatch, I know these type of issues keep you up at night, literally. You know, you're worried about this in the future of the country. So we got you back. Keep working hard on it. And love to hear back from you on a good, positive progress.
I don't like what I see happening to America. The infrastructure of our country is a laughingstock all over the world. Our airports, our bridges, our roadways, it's falling apart. It's a terrible thing to see. Our politicians are all talk, no action. Millions of people are flowing across our southern border. We've got to build a real wall. With all of this, our country has tremendous potential. Let's make America great again.
I've said it. Since the day he made the sacrifice to hit the campaign trail, voters crave the anti-status quo politician. They want results. They need a fighter. They need someone to fire all those political correct police. And this is a movement. The Trumpeters, Trumpservatives, these are what these folks are called. Everything about Donald Trump's campaign, it's avant-garde, and he is crushing it in the polls. One American News, you viewers, he's talking to you. He wants to connect to those who are going to show up at the polls and elect the leader of the free world. So, Mr. Trump, I had James Carville on yesterday. Remember his "It's the economy, silly." The turbulent global economy leads to daily volatility here, and that affects the working class. And I know that's where your heart is, in this working class. How is our economy really doing, especially reacting to world markets?
Well, if you really look, Sarah, at the economy, it's been terrible. We have 93 million people out of work. They look for jobs, they give up, and all of a sudden, statistically, they're considered employed. Our economy is doing terribly. We've lost tremendous amounts of jobs to China, to Japan, to Mexico, and to so many other places. And it's really very sad when you look at what's happening. We have taken away, they've just destroyed our job base, and we have to make a lot of improvement.
Yeah, and I don't think we're getting the truth out of the White House, the true state of the economy, so thanks for setting that straight. And Bloomberg reports...
No, the White House is not truthful.
Yeah, and Bloomberg reports that, well, you wouldn't mind raising taxes on yourself. And we know our current tax code, it's a joke, and it's unjust. And I, though, wouldn't be offering to let the IRS take more of my money, but share what you mean by fixing our screwed-up tax code.
Well, we have a complex tax code that nobody understands, and people can't figure it out, and they have to spend tremendous amounts of money for lawyers and accountants, and we have to simplify our tax code. You have hedge fund guys that are paying virtually no tax, and they're making a fortune, and we have to change our tax code. There's no question about it. And I say simplification. Now, you can go to a fair tax or a flat tax, but the easiest way and the quickest way, at least on a temporary basis, is simplification of the code, get rid of deductions, reduce taxes. But some of these people, like some of these hedge fund guys, they're making a lot of money. They're paying very little tax. It's unfair to the middle class. We have to create we have to help the middle class. The country, as you know better than anybody, the country was based on the middle class. They're the ones that really had so much to do with what we all have now, and they are being treated horribly.
I want to talk about the campaign then, about that middle class that you're really resonating with, your message about fairness, just jobs being created in a better economy. On the campaign trail, specifically, I know a lot of military folks, and I saw a guy walk behind you, Mr. Trump, with an Army T-shirt on, and it reminded me, hearing from so many military personnel every day personally, it's lately been all about you. It's a connection there that I'd like to know more about, the respect that they have for a truth talker as opposed to just getting punched in the nose the last 7 years under Obama. How is it that you made that connection?
Well, you're one of the people that would know because you have that connection also, Sarah. One of the reasons I've always liked you so much, you and your family, you have that great connection. And it's really pretty simple. You know, you look at what's happening with the vets. They're being treated like third-class citizens. We have tremendous amounts of money going toward the vets, but we have incompetent management, incompetent leadership. And, you know, as of 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, they had the longest wait in the history of the Veterans Administration, Sarah. People would wait 5 days, 2 days, 3 days to see a doctor in a waiting room. And sometimes at the end of that long wait, they wouldn't even get to see a doctor. The vets have been treated terribly. If I win, if I get the nomination and ultimately win, believe me, the vets will be taken care of. And I do have a relationship with them. I see the relationship. I feel it. They did a poll recently, and I'm very popular with the vets because they know I'll fix the Veterans Administration. It's a disgrace the way the vets are being treated in our country. There are great people, and they're treated very badly.
And they are great people, and they're humble. And, you know, the reason that it's been this undercurrent problem and scandal in the VA is because vets don't complain. They're not whiners. And here it is up to us then to figure out what the problem is and then to fix it. More about the campaign trail. You're seeing some idiots in the press, and they're misrepresenting your exchange, like the other day with the political activist, the father of the Clinton staffer, Univision's Jorge Ramos, and you schooled that radical activist. And it was the right thing to do, because I don't think he's going to pull that again. Where'd you get your guts for that kind of necessary confrontation?
Well, you know, the press was very good to me on that one because he was totally out of line. He was screaming and ranting and raving. And I actually said, who is this guy? Then I figured it out. And, you know, I'm suing Univision actually for $500 million. His daughter works for Hillary Clinton, and he was trying to put on a show. But actually, he was hurting the rest because the room was packed with various people from the press. I mean, it was a press conference, and they were all being, you know, they were waiting to have questions, and I was going to ask them. I would have gotten to him. But he stood up and started screaming all over the place. And frankly, Sarah, the press was pretty good to me on that. I mean, they agreed with what I did. I never raised my voice or anything, but they agreed, generally speaking, with what I did. So I was happy with that.
Oh, you're pretty gracious when it comes to then treating the press the way that sometimes they're not going to treat us conservatives, speaking of the press. So you get hit with these gotchas like most conservatives do. For instance, they asking, what's your favorite Bible verse? And I'm listening to that going, what? Do they ask Hillary that? What does it have to do with running for the office of the presidency? Is it anybody's business? These personal gotcha questions really trying to get you, us, anybody running for office off game. How are you finding that and finding a technique to put them in their place so that the American public isn't wasting their time and they actually get to hear what's important via a candidate's message?
Well, you saw that. You know, I love the Bible, and I'm a Protestant, I'm Presbyterian, and they were hitting me with different questions one after another. And, you know, look, I don't know if it's got you, but probably is. And then they said, what's your favorite verse? And, you know, that's a very personal thing. I don't like giving that out to two people that you hardly know. And frankly, I don't know if they're fair questions or not fair questions. But, you know, there are certain things that you and myself and a lot of other people like to keep personal. But I love the Bible. It actually started where somebody held up the book, The Art of the Deal. I said, that's my second favorite book. But my first favorite book by far is the Bible. So, but it's all worked out very well. You know, interestingly, in the last poll, I won with everything, including evangelicals, big with the evangelicals, big with the Tea Party. We had tremendous poll numbers with Tea Party and conservatives, but we also won with the moderates, with the poor, with the rich. I mean, we won on every category, so I was happy. But I was very happy with evangelicals and actually also very happy that the Tea Party numbers were much higher than anybody else's. Very happy about that.
Well, you know, Tea Party advocates, we have a libertarian-leaning streak within us, and I know that that's important to you, too, because you understand that you, as a businessman, as a father, as a family member, you can certainly make decisions for yourself, your business, your family better than some bureaucrat can back in Washington, D.C., and that's kind of the foundation of a libertarian's thinking. I know you're busy. You got millions of people waiting for you, Donald Trump, so I have one more question.
Well, I am, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm going to Massachusetts tonight. I'm going to Iowa again very soon. We had some tremendous evenings in Iowa and New Hampshire. I'm going next week again, and it's been amazing. In Alabama, you saw we had 31,000 people in the stadium last week, and the spirit there was incredible because they want to see something happen that's going to be great. They want to see America be great again. You know, if you look at what's happening with this country, it's so sad, and you pointed it out for years, and it wasn't easy for you to do that, and you hate to have to do that, but we are doing it, and we have tremendous support, tremendous standing ovations, and we're having a lot of fun. You know, we're bringing back the sort of, I use the term again, it hasn't been used in a long time, the silent majority. There's a tremendous group of people out there that just want to see this country be great again, and that's what I'm really seeing, and it really is resonating, Sarah. And I have to tell you, you are a terrific person, and it's great to be with you.
Thank you so much, Donald Trump. Get out there and let the people know what it is that you stand for and what your intentions are for this country. So thank you for taking your valuable time and sharing it with us. Thank you. Now, from the Donald to the antithesis of the Donald. It's the PC police, the political correct police, and they're at it again at ESPN. Hey, ESPN, stick to sports. We're going to explain that later.
One America News looks back to moments in history that shaped our country and our world and makes us who we are.
January 24th, 1908. The appearance of a book, Scouting for Boys, by Lieutenant General Robert Baden-Powell, inspires the first Boy Scouts organization in Great Britain. Baden-Powell first experimented with a special camp on an island retreat, training boys in outdoor skills, physical fitness, and a sense of community-minded chivalry. His ideas caught on so fast that within 2 years, Boy Scouts could be found in Chile, Canada, France, Mexico, Norway, Argentina, and the U.S. Baden-Powell went on to found the Wolf Cubs for younger boys, as well as the Rover Scouts for older ones. And by 1920, Sir Robert Baden-Powell had already convened the Second International Boy Scout Jamboree.
ESPN, what the heck happened to you? Picking and choosing who will be tolerated and who you're going to destroy. They suspended Curt Schilling because he tweeted this stat. Only 5 to 10% of Muslims are extremists. In 1940, only 7% of Germans were Nazis. How'd that go? ESPN reacted about as fast as a Schilling pitch, and they started whimpering, Kurt's tweet is unacceptable, and we've removed him from assignment. A bunch of water boys over there running the show. And there has been crude, rude bile spewing from that network for years. One ESPN affiliate's on-air rant featuring their misogynist, animalistic analysts giggling through an entire X-rated celebration of violence against women. It didn't even draw a chirp from ESPN's top dogs. They had a convicted rapist on graphically describing the next rape that he hoped to see in a sports broadcast. So Schilling's tweet, well, it was just a stat. ESPN, you use stats. It's true. 88% of Egyptian Muslims do favor death over anyone leaving Islam, and these views are seen by reasonable people as being extreme. So ESPN, by denying the accuracy of that stat, of the tweet, it shows your utter weakness as you guys just swallowing ISIS propaganda. You know, terrorists using ESPN to mislead the public about the very real threat of terrorists. It shows once again ESPN concentrates on liberal global politics versus just reporting well on our sports. And Schilling is not a bleeding heart liberal, and I believe that's why they cracked down on him. ESPN, just all around awful on this. They should have just stuck to sports. We're going to hear from an expert on that. Joining me from Breitbart Sports is Kevin Schola. Kevin, thanks so much for being here. Can ESPN keep this up?
Governor, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you. And yes, unfortunately they can, because we have seen in so many examples that the powers that be at ESPN now are far left liberal in their agenda. And it is unbelievable, because not only are people like Schilling in this latest case shot down or suspended when they say something, like you said, that deals in things that you like to deal in, fact and common sense. Well, no, he's got to go. But in the meantime, if you are pro Michael Sam or airing Michael Sam's Kiss on the air, or pro Ferguson from the standpoint anti-police statements that was said by some ESPN people, that's okay too. But, or Bruce Jenner, you know, he's courageous to ESPN, whatever's going on there. But when it is said by a conservative, and again, just statistics and fact, he's got to go as far as ESPN. And it's really heartbreaking to the sports fan. I know you're a sport maniac like me. Your dad and your brother, right? Packers and Yankees, big time fans, and I'm the same way. And sports was the one place we used to go, right, without politics. And now, unfortunately, it's almost like Hollywood.
I know. You know, Kevin, I can't even preach anymore the beauty of sports in a national arena, because that's what I used to say is, oh, man, I love sports, and I can justify it because it's like it's a distraction. It's a healthy outlet. Well, not when ESPN is doing what it's doing. And speaking of sports fans, you're a coach, you're a reporter, you're an announcer. Do you think that other sports fans, not just us, do you think anybody really likes this type of back and forth political talk, or wouldn't people just rather hear about sports?
It depends who you talk to. I think the real sport fan, someone like you, someone like myself, you know, it used to be you'd go to a game and it didn't matter who was next to you, black, white, whatever political stripe. For that day, you were Bears fans, you were Rockets fans, whatever it is, it had nothing to do with it. Who played? The best guy. Didn't matter his color, his background. The best people played as well. But that's not the case nowadays. Some people do like this, and that's what they're trying to do, is bring in more people who really don't care about the game itself. But that's what they do in other ways too. All the crazy rule changes in the NFL by Roger Goodell, all this fantasy football nonsense, it's to bring
cover what it is that a fan so craves. Two quick questions. One, should Schilling have deleted his tweet then? And two, how are your kids' teams doing? Those are the toughest gigs ever, is coaching your own kids.
Well, that's the thing about the Schilling thing. You really, you see what he did, but he should have pulled a Trump, for lack of a better term. He should have doubled down and said enough with this apology nonsense. Because if a guy who's won multiple World Series, you know, Bloody Sock, Red Sox, Diamondbacks, a guy like Kurt Schilling is forced to apologize, what if you're some third stringer on a team? You'll be scared to talk. And that's exactly what they want. If you don't agree, don't say a word, or we'll do to you what we're doing to anyone, no matter their level. As far as my guys, thank you for asking. Softball and baseball just ended. They're doing great, and now they moved on to cheerleading and football. And yes, he's 4, but he's playing football. And yes, I'm the coach, and I'm going there right now after this talk.
All right, well, make him run an extra lap from me. Awesome. And pull the Trump. Okay, I'm going to use that one. Okay, Kevin, I'm going to pull the Trump. That's what we'll start using. Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us from Breitbart.com. They're doing great work over there. The great Kevin Schola. Okay, final thoughts are next, and it's going to be good news, America. Keep the faith. We'll be right back.
Jefferson Memorial sits on the most western point of the tidal basin, directly across from the George Washington Monument. The memorial was dedicated by President Roosevelt on April 13, 1943, the 200th anniversary of Thomas Jefferson's birthday. Jefferson, the third president of the United States, is most notably remembered for authoring our Declaration of Independence, extending us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You're watching One American News, your nation, your news.
You're watching One American News Network.
We want good news to wrap up a great week. It has been my pleasure guest hosting on One American News. And now, for me, it's back to the real world in Wasilla, where the nighttime forecast, I think, was like 30 degrees. I'll miss you, California. In my book, Good Tidings and Great Joy, I covered legal cases brought about to gag and silence and otherwise just drive Christians out of the public square. One ludicrous case was brought by the American Atheists, a group crying that the steel beam cross that was formed from the wreckage of the World Trade Center during the 9/11 attacks, that it shouldn't be allowed in the 9/11 Memorial Museum. Friends, remember the finding of that cross? Somehow surviving the Muslim terrorists' atrocious attack on America. First responders finding it, amazed at its symbolism. It helped give hope to a nation in shock and mourning. But intolerant atheists, they hated it. They'd never tolerate steel beams somehow twisted in the shape of a cross. The intolerant left sued, claiming the display caused them, quote, headaches, mental pain, and, get this, indigestion. That was their legal claim. They argued that the whole thing was unconstitutional, too. The lawsuit was dismissed. Thankfully, courts recognizing the ne'er-do-wells, those claims of theirs were crazy and unfounded. But the leftist ne'er-do-wells, they won't stop, of course, pressuring, persecuting, filing frivolous lawsuits to try to destroy our One America's foundation, trying to intimidate you so that you'll sit down and shut up and just swallow some fundamental transformation of America. Whose mama told them anyway that anyone's got the right to go through life unoffended? Come on, buck up, lefties. You don't like intersecting scrap metal beams? Then look away, look away. I am happy to tell you that cross now stays at the 9/11 Museum. It stands as a symbol of true hope and good change and a fundamental restoration of the greatest nation on earth. So American atheists, with your owies and your indigestion, instead of a lawsuit, next time, try Tums. I thank you so much for tuning in. I've so enjoyed being able to reach you, One American News viewers. Good night, America, and God bless you.
And coming up on